in less than 10 months, we were able from zero to get to orbit and demonstrating orbit technology, which was a pace that was really shocking in many other domains.
Welcome to Rockets and Radars podcast, a podcast for early stage space and defense founders. The idea is to get Series A founders from either space or defense industry and let them to tell story of their startup or company from the very start until the present, so you can get the knowledge from people that actually have done it before. I want to make this as informal as possible. Think of it as being in a pub and talking with a guest there. So I hope you will really enjoy the conversation. This week, I have invited Lorenzo Feruglio from AIKO to tell us about his very early journey that got him to Series A, that AIKO raised just 1 month ago. I hope you will enjoy this conversation.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This is going to be really a very chill conversation, and that's the main goal of this. And I'm very excited to have Lorenzo here from AIKO. It's really great to have you here. This is actually a big moment because we are only talking about around 1 month since you announced your Series A. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. Yeah.
And that's amazing. And congratulations to you guys. You are one of the next generation of pioneers in a European, but also Italian space startup ecosystem. And that's amazing to see new faces to pop up that will hopefully change the industry, not just on the European level, but also on a global one. For listeners who might not be familiar with AIKO, could you give us a quick overview of what your company does in space and why AI is so crucial for the future of space missions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think through the years, the easiest way to describe AIKO I've found is that we are indeed an automation company. As any automation company in the world, we are pursuing very specific, very, very classic value proposition, which are the reduction of costs of specific industrial processes and the increase of efficiencies of certain industrial processes. Like any other automation company in the world, the only specific thing about us is that we are working in a very specific industry environment, in a specific industry vertical, which is the space economy. And for us, the focus is the automation of satellite operations to drive the value of the satellite operators that are trying to deliver a service, a business model, thanks to the utilization of satellites in orbit. And our value propositions is really to improve how satellites deliver the service and how less we can have the operations cost for our customer.
And money is important, especially in the space industry where every gram counts. Just out of curiosity, for the people that might not know the story that well, why did you choose space industry for that matter? Why not something else more generalistic where there's more capital in other industries, right? Why space?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, this is actually an answer that traces a little bit back in my story and the story of the other founder. Because, well, first of all, AIKO started as a result of our PhD thesis, the research we were doing in the use of artificial intelligence for satellite missions. Myself, I was investigating the use of AI for automation of satellite operations. My co-founder was investigating the use of AI for supporting decision-making. But we were both part of the aerospace lab in our university in Turin. But actually, way before this, the reason why we are in space is that in our bachelor, we both joined the satellite team of the university. And throughout what were like 8 years combined from bachelor, master, and PhD, we were part of this satellite team that launched 2 satellites in orbit. And I guess this was really the first drive of us working in the space sector. And yeah, since then, all my experiences in the industry before the PhD, between master and PhD, and in the student team were really driven in the space part.
It's good that you started with the university part because that's where we are heading next. Usually, when people are about to finish their final thesis, they try to look for a job, even though you were working on something super interesting. why you just haven't tried to get to Airbus or Thales in space? Why have you decided to start your own company?
And in fact, actually, I had tried to join a specific work opportunity, because when I was doing the PhD, I spent 2 years at NASA JPL in Los Angeles, California. And at the end of my second year, I actually did really, it was a specific position for flight software engineer. That was my job at the student team. I was building the flight software of the satellite. So I was really well positioned to get that interview. And actually, I got down to the process of starting the hiring process because I passed the interviews, and then it was
Mm.
blocked because of something. I mean, that's what they told me. I don't know whether it was true or not, but it was really true from my supervisor point of view. They got into troubles into sponsoring the green cards for me because I had to have the green card to work on specific
Mm.
topics. And actually, that was my try of getting a proper job in a proper aerospace place. Actually, I was really in love with NASA JPL. And the spark that started the idea of actually starting the company was that I was in fact kind of depressed that I didn't get that job, that I was really not looking forward to join any other company, and maybe that's the only conclusion I was left with was, yeah, let's try to start our own company then.
So the failure brought you to start AIKO, which is a success so far. So that's so amazing. And by the way, for people that are in the very early stages in their life or in their professional life, and they are about to finish their master's thesis or even PhD, and they are thinking about getting into space industry, like, what would you tell to those people? Should they try and start a company if they are really passionate about the very specific subsector or product or specific submarket? Or would you tell them try to go to GPL or try to go to Airbus for a while to understand the processes to get into the work mode and then start?
So I would actually say maybe two valid options that I think that they are valid for such a person thinking to start their own company. Either if you think you have a very sound technical concept, technical idea that is on the verge of coming up in the space economy, this is probably a story that falls within the classical tech startup domain where you have a very sound technical, maybe very complex technical idea with some preliminary validation, especially from the research part. So you are quite confident that you're not dealing with something that is strange or not really trustable, but it's still general enough that can be worth pursuing at a commercial level. Then sure, why not? It could be now a good moment to start. And we see many more, even early stage funds that are there to help startup be funded this way. So for sure, yes. The other option, which is maybe a safer option, I would recommend not to join a big aerospace company. I don't think that's a good place to be as a newly graduate, because it's not a place where you learn at the pace you would like to learn in a space environment. Unless maybe you can get a job at SpaceTech. I would absolutely recommend joining the many good satellite startups that we have in Europe or US or anywhere for that matters. But being a startup makes sure that in the first 1 to 2 years of your experience, you learn so much that you couldn't really do the same in a very established aerospace company. And also, for sure, if you want a safer option, join a startup which has maybe raised some funding, so you still get a salary and potentially really a boost in your learning path and your career path.
And when we talk about trying to get into startups, who do you think should join AIKO? Who do you think should speak to you as a person, either from the skill set perspective or from the personality perspective or location for
For
that matter?
Yeah. When location, AIKO at the moment is hiring throughout Europe. Later on, we will expand globally. So location is not really an issue for us. We are a remote-friendly company. So if you want to go to the office, you can go. If you want to stay remote, you can stay remote. We don't care. The biggest important aspect for us is the cultural fit. So even more than the technical skills and the technical excellence, which of course we select based on that as well, for sure. But the cultural fit is very important. We are a group of people that care about each other, and if you see us, you see that this is really a strong aspect of our culture. We're not a single one man band. people that really only think about themselves. Really, we help each other in the company, and that's our most important aspect, I would say. So if you are this kind of people and that you have something to show on the technical side, there is then probably a very good match for you in our company.
If your company culture was a person, how that person would talk in the middle of the street?
That's a good question. I never thought about transporting this to a person, but it's for sure a person that cares about the others first with respect to their own interest, for sure. At least the people that we have in AIKO, everybody's really ready to help others, seeking to let them grow. We, let's say, empower people that can be trustable and can be really fit with the team. We prioritize working in teams than rather working individually. So these are some traits that we really respect and really strive to expand in the people that we hire.
Well, if there is anybody in the audience that feels that they're the right person, then talk to Lorenzo after the episode. I will put his contact details in the story notes. Okay, let's get back to the story. So we were talking about you doing a master thesis with your co-founder, and you decided to start a company. What was your first actual step towards creating the company from the thesis that you were focusing on at the university?
We decided we wanted to start our own company, and the steps were really get a basic understanding on how to build a company in at the country we were at, which is Italy. And so we spoke a little bit with consultants, accountants, just to get a basic understanding of building a company. And then that's where our third co-founder jumped in, because actually AIKO was founded by three people, two technical co-founders and a third co-founder that is actually a lawyer. So lawyer background. He was originally a friend of the second technical co-founder. And he was brought in because he could help us in establishing the company as a legal entity and to cover all the legal matters of the company. You know, he is now still an active co-founder. He's an employee of the company, so he's working with us and has, through the years, provided invaluable resources and expertise in dealing with many contractual aspects and legal aspects. So at the end, the first steps were really implementation of how do we do to create a commercial entity. You know, maybe today, probably even at the time, the correct steps would have been assessing some business ideas, some business models first. And we didn't do any of that. We did all of that after creating the company. But anyway, we were eager to start. So we had to show that the existence of an entity to even start to get proper meetings with the first companies in the aerospace domain.
Well, you just got to Series A. So there are some things that you did definitely right. And one more question, a bit of out of sideline regarding co-founders. So you met your first co-founder at the university. But I'm very curious, what do you think? What would you say to people that may have even validated their business proposition and they might have some already initial potential customers? What would you tell them on what is the best way to find your co-founder or co-founders?
Well, it's a very challenging question. I have a few friends that are about to start up some business ideas that are actually in the things that we were describing, you know, pre-validated with initial potential customer, and are actually very struggling into finding co-founders, especially the technical ones. So it's actually a difficult question. My best guesses would be trying to join circles and niches that are likely to have the presence of these type of person you're looking for. If you're looking for a technical co-founder, maybe in the software domain, participate to hackathons, to maybe some groups that are meeting in the evening. I don't know, depending on your city availability as well, for sure. There is another path of interesting instruments, tools that are these programs where you just go and with the idea of building the co-founding team of a company directly there. Entrepreneur First was an example. There are many more now starting up in different places in the world. And those are interesting because you have probably a higher chance of meeting a like-minded person that is willing to embark in the startup process. So this could be for sure a topic as well.
Okay.
Don't forget your colleagues and friends, of course, but you need to have the proper skill set among those people to really make sure they can be a co-founder.
So, yeah, so you have a complete package of people that can make
Correct.
things happen. Awesome. So when we go back to creating your legal entity, what happened after? You said that you used it to be more credible among first potential customers. What happened in this period? How did you start from the moment of having a legal entity to trying to get your first potential partners and customers?
Yeah. So the first year, I would say year and a half was really about a couple of things. On one side, we were working hard on the first really proof of concept of our first product. That was really a simplified version of what we have today, but it was meant to demonstrate a little bit some initial KPIs of what we were doing, and so we were focused a lot on that. In the meanwhile, we were starting to request meetings to the aerospace companies that we were knowing in the environment we were in, because we were founded in Torino, which is one of the biggest aerospace centers of Italy. So there were a couple of companies there to talk to. They were kind enough to meet with us. Those were not really pragmatic meetings in terms of getting a customer. What drove us towards the customers was actually the participation to the aerospace fairs and congresses throughout Europe. This is probably a suggestion also for new startup coming up, but there are so many incentives for young startups to get discounts and participate to events, even get the small booths at the events, really paying a few euros. And those are very valuable to get you on the scene, to get you known by these companies, and really helps a lot in securing a little bit the initial customer conversations that you need to do to achieve market fit for your products.
As you mentioned, Turin is one of the biggest parts of the Italian space ecosystem. How did you navigate it as a person who just got into the business for the first time? How did you know who to speak to?
I simply reached out to the spokesperson of these companies that I was seeing either online or at the congresses. Those were typically business developers of the company. And then I was trying to navigate to the people that I was actually interested in talking with. So typically tech people to share ideas and present our solution. No? I had a huge difficulty in actually getting to the right people, even because I was very young at that, kind of young at the time. I had like 27 years of age. And the aerospace industry is a very old industry, so I had to convince people that I know it was not just a student, but we were really trying to build something. And this was really an issue back in 2017 when we founded the company. Now it's getting better. Now the topic of startups in the aerospace economy is quite well known by everybody. And I get to see less and less people that are suspicious of working with young people that have just founded a company. I guess now it's a little bit simpler.
When you said that your first year you tried to prove your concept, what was the point of getting into that?
Look at the manuals on how you should start. Like it's actually it's kind of complex. Now, on one side, if I look at aspect, then now today you have the manuals of starting lean. You need to do a lean approach to the market, talk to customer, iterate with them, and really state your product through frequent interaction with the customer base and so on. This is super true. But then when you look at the DeepTech scenario, this is quite difficult to do because you need to prepare the technology. You need to spend years building the technology. The customer doesn't even understand why you're doing certain things because this is a disruption of the market you're working in. So the lean approach is really conflicting a little bit with the DeepTech startup type of things, no? But so if I look back, what we were trying to do was trying to have something to show for what we were pitching, because the research at the PhD level where we did build a few prototypes for sure, but we were not having any really proof of concept of a new technology, of a new product to be deployed. So we were working on that. And then that was the reason why at the end we had something to show. This helped us in even writing proposals for grants and contracts where we were actually showcasing potential benefits and improvements for the space users and whatever. And we couldn't have gotten these KPIs without having a prototype to measure these KPIs in the first place. No? So we had to have something to show, to get the KPIs, to present to people.
And what was your first prototype actually?
The prototype was a Frankenstein of Python modules and software modules we developed from scratch. That was the baseline of what we have now as a product. Orbital Oliver is our autonomy enabler product for satellite operations on board the satellite. So it was really the first prototype of the application that we now installed in the satellite to make the satellite able to handle autonomous planning on board.
When you said that you literally brought AI into an industry where not many people have been thinking about it, I'm very curious about how was your first pitch actually? How did it look? How did you pitch AI in space to your potential customers and later also investors?
Overall, the story has remained quite the same at the high level. No, AIKO has always pitched the vision of fully autonomous satellites to drive down costs and increase efficiency. And I'm happy to see that this has been a reason for which we can say that we never really pivoted anywhere. We really just went in the same direction from the beginning. But the change in the pitches are actually quite evident because at the beginning we were pitching artificial intelligence as the solution to everything because the aerospace domain was not a field that was really used to have artificial intelligence at all. Back in the day, there were not such a huge examples of AI worldwide, such as ChatGPT today or similar applications today. No, so back in the day, it was really, it was difficult. But the difference that I see now with our pitches today is that we do not stress anymore on the word artificial intelligence as the default center topic of our pitch. Now, at that time we were thinking if we build AI, we are going to be successful. And today our pitch is if we solve the customer problem, we're going to be successful. And the AI is just a technology that allows us to solve a specific customer problem.
So if you think about it, that was the only pivot in the mindset, but otherwise your product stayed the same throughout the years.
The vision stayed the same. The product has evolved a lot. We came out
fair enough.
with different products as well. No, actually, the first product we did, the Orbital Oliver, was actually a very wrong product in terms of product market fit because it was a super complex product with maybe key benefits for sure, but really complex to implement, really complex to convince many designers of satellites to adopt this technology. It was really a wrong product market fit. Over the years, we were able to really come out on the market with better market fits with our products. For sure.
And when we are talking about the first product, what about your first customer? When did you get them on board and how did you get them on board?
If we exclude a little bit of grants that we took from the European Commission, I believe our first customer was ESA, if I'm not mistaken, the European Space Agency, because we actually managed to win a contract with them. It was back in 2019, I believe, for the use of generative AI for the Earth observation domain.
How did you get ESA on board as your first customer? That's a big milestone. Usually people go through friends, fools, and family in this world. How did you get the big name right away?
The specific tender we won was a very technical tender, and we were technical people at the time. I was super technical. And we delivered a really strong proposal from the technical point of view. Strong enough, probably, that ESA decided to trust a very young company with a contract, despite us being less, maybe 2 years of age or something like that. So it was a big milestone for us.
Well, with the money that you got from ESA, you have done the first European in-orbit demonstration. Is that right?
In general, the AIKO growth story was always the same pattern: getting a few contracts, getting the first investor, getting bigger contracts, getting a bigger investor, getting bigger, so on. This is really the same pattern since the beginning. Now, in 3 funding rounds, from the pre-seed to the seed and the Series A now, was always the similar story. Now, which I guess it's a kind of an organic way to grow, supported and accelerated with the investor by every couple of years. So at the time, the in-orbit demonstration that we did, we were worldwide first with the deep learning in orbit, was 2019, and we got there with the pre-seed investment round. So with the pre-seed that we closed at December 2018, we were able to hire a few employees, and with them, we delivered on this result.
Okay, I would love to hear more about the pre-seed round. I would love to learn about how did you approach the fundraising process. and also how long it took to get the first money in.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, I'm sorry for the listeners. I'm going to give now a suggestion and then our story. What I would recommend today to the young entrepreneurs is build a method out of reaching out to investor, tracking investor replies, reaching out to the specific niche of investors that are, let's say, sensible to the themes of your company and so on. Now, this is the classical methods. There are plenty of tutorials online. Please follow those tutorials. For us, it was completely the opposite. We were actually approached by a pre-seed investor that heard about us. I honestly don't remember where. And they proposed to us to invest in the company. We were not actively looking for investor at that time, but we were starting to discuss about that. And we simply said, okay, let's go with it. We didn't do many pitches to other investors. It was really one opportunity. We took it and we built upon that opportunity. You know, I don't think I would recommend it today. But for us, we were very, very lucky. At the end, we got a pre-seed investor that was really supportive. The deal was super fair at the time. And we were, at the end, I'm happy with how the things turned out. I'm just saying that taking the first opportunity is not highly probable that you get what you really need or want. For us, it was okay. So I'm really happy how things turned out. And kudos to them as an investor, because they're really supportive of the company they invest in. But yeah, maybe today there are better methods to secure investment. Sure.
Probably there are very similar cases that could work too. Okay, when we look at the money that you got in the pre-seed round, you said you used it for the first European in-orbit demonstration of deep learning. I'm very curious, how did the demonstration go?
I think it was February, if I'm not mistaken. And I meet the head of R&D of Satellogic, a company that everybody knows in the Earth observation domain. And he was really interested in the topics of using AI on board the satellites to process the data on board. And the funny part is that from February to October, so in less than 10 months, we were able from zero to get to orbit and demonstrating orbit technology, which was a pace that was really shocking in many other domains. Now, I knew companies that they were trying to demonstrate in orbit things, and they actually did manage to demonstrate the years after some new deep learning algorithms and so on. But for us, it took less than 10 months. It was really interesting pace for sure.
How did this demonstration change conversations with future investors that you talk to? Did they see it as a good sign that made them more likely to invest in you?
For sure, for us, it was really a huge bump in credibility because we didn't have demonstrated anything in orbit before. And then just after it, we were starting really to have this as a strong point in our pitches, in our presentations. So it was really a huge bump in credibility. Concerning the investors, we got the investment from Primo in 2020. So it was 1 year and a half later. And it was part of the credibility we were building when we invested. It was not just that, sure, but it for sure helped invest.
Okay, and as we tapped into the next funding grants, I'm very curious to deep dive into all of them. So we talked about the pre-seed. Tell us more about seed and then beyond. What did you change in your approach of talking with investors? And I'm very curious if your pitch changed too as you progress through funding stages.
So, well, the short answer for sure is the pitch always changes, and we changed the pitch so many times. I will, at some points, all the managers of AIKO were sick of working on the new pitches because we were not finding a simple way to describe our automation, our vision, and so on. Because at the time we were really delivering tech pitches, and the tech pitch is not getting you an investor. You need to have a compelling story, a compelling vision, and so on. So we worked a lot on that for sure. When we got the investment of the seed round, that was 2020, we were 7 people at that time. And with that seed round, we grew to 40 people at the end today. We kind of followed, I would say, the classical steps of a pre-seed Series A company, where when you reach the seed stage, you have a product, a clear product idea. You are maybe starting to demonstrate the market fit, and you're starting a little bit to secure a little bit of revenues. And the the goal of the seed company is really to consolidate on that, finish building the product, demonstrate it, and then maybe start to think about the commercial aspect of that product. So for us, the 2020 investment was focused on Orbital Oliver as a product. The business plan was really focused on that, and we were trying to build a company out of Orbital Oliver as a product for the onboard automation of satellite operations.
When you started talking about the round, you mentioned hiring. That you hired pretty aggressively since that round. So I'm very curious to obviously get into the chat of first hire. How did you find your first hire? And also, what about the first 10 employees that you hired? Is there any pattern that you were looking at in the very early stage, if you compare it to hiring now?
Okay, so, well, how did we get the first hire? We were super lucky, honestly. I could not be luckier. But it's actually a result of the things we were doing as students, because the first 4 hires of the company, 3 of them were from the student team that were building satellites with me at the Polytechnic. So they were young, super young students at the time. I knew them and I really trusted them. They trusted me. So it was really a trust relationship. And yeah, those hires are now, 2 of them are C-levels of the company. One is head of software. So it's really, they made a career in the company. They were really, really sticking with us. The 4th hire was not part of the CubeSat team. The satellite team was coming from another university, but still had the vision of wanted to work for a startup. Actually, she found the position on Angel List that was of an old website where you could find jobs for startup environments, something like that. And she's also with us as the head of machine learning. The underlying theme of these hires was really trust. We hired from friends or from people that we knew they were trustable and they were really skilled with what they were doing. And most of them came this way, really. And in general, in AIKO, we have a story of hiring people we know because we can trust that the person will really deliver something. But of course, as you scale, this is not sustainable. As you scale, you need to hire. You need to learn how to hire from the market, and this is something we have learned as well.
Okay, let's get into the product development. You mentioned Orbital Oliver. Right now, AIKO has a portfolio of different products. So I was very curious if you could take us through the journey of adding more products into a portfolio, and also I'm very curious, why did you choose to expand on that?
If we trace back the story, I think the first input for us to consider expanding the portfolio of products came out of the Creative Destruction Lab accelerator program we participated in 2020. CDL is a worldwide accelerator. They run different streams of industry verticals, let's say. It's a really cool accelerator. I recommend people to go in there and check it, because it's for free, first of all, and then you get really thrown into a pit of 2,000 entrepreneurs from different verticals that are there only to judge you and to recommend something to you and so on. It's a period of, I think, 6 months of program. And one of the major, it's super useful. I really recommend it. And one of the major outputs for us was that it was very shared among all the mentors we had as a product. It was too complex. It was too complex to understand. It was too complex to position. And we really had an issue there because we needed something simpler to sell, to position, and so on. So the result of this is that, so Orbital Oliver, basically the goal of the product is to make the satellite completely autonomous. And out of this, we decided, okay, can we split it into basic functionalities, and some of these can be a single product? And the answer was yes, combining the in-orbit demonstration we did for the Earth observation satellite. Came out at that time, it was called Clarity. Clarity was a deep learning model for performing cloud detection on board the satellites. So we broke down the complex automation of the satellite into a single step of selecting data on board, which is one of the key steps of delivering value. And then came out Clarity. Clarity was a simple product. No? It's a deep learning model. You put it on the satellite filters out the data that is not relevant to send down to ground. A very simple and effective pitch. So now when that product came into the market, we started to pitch also that to potential customers and so on. And then out of that came the idea of, yeah, but this is just cloud detection. Can we have a product to do object detection? Can we have a product to do so? So then we started to get this idea of a portfolio of AI applications that run on the satellite. And this populated, let's say, the portfolio of AI applications that now represents the data processing suite that we have for the satellites to be plugged in into Orbital Oliver as the autonomy engine that we still have on board the satellite. No? And then this is the first story of getting multiple products on board. And then we started to reason on the market instead. Now, because we started to think, okay, but this is only on board. The sales cycles are very slow. It's really difficult to convince the companies to install software on the satellites, especially if you have a fixed design of the satellite and so on. And then we started to think, okay, can we do something on ground with our capabilities? What is there on the mission control center that people are not using or not doing correctly? And it came the ground product, Gifted Gene, which is predictive maintenance in the mission control center. Still the same value proposition at the end, automating some processes into delivering better value. And for us is the analysis of the time series of the satellite, the sensor of the satellite, to try to anticipate and prevent the failures of the satellite. And now that came as a result of willing to expand the market, the total market of AIKO, and really to get shorter stage cycles and improve the market traction at the end. Yes.
And did I get it right? That accelerator incubator that you mentioned, what was the name again?
Creative Destruction Lab.
So it looks like that influenced you a lot. How did you approach your product offering, right?
I mean that program had mentors, really high caliber mentors. Where they were like head engineers of Uber, like CTOs of really strong space company in the US and Canada. It was really a strong mentorship program. So for sure, we really considered the feedbacks that we received during that period for sure.
On that note, I would love to hear your opinion on what you think about the current industry's incubators, i.e. ESABIC and others. Do you think founders should persuade them?
So my view on this answer is that even in order to apply to the leading accelerator, you need an idea, you need a refined idea, some work to be done previously. You need to show maybe a potential initial business plan and so on. Maybe you don't have to have it completely drafted out, but it helps to have the clear ideas of what you're pitching, why you are applying to that. Then there is another topic for me that is, do they actually help you as a founder, as a company builder in delivering what you are trying to do? And maybe the answer is still quite not a strong yes on it, in my opinion. No? They are growing, they are improving how they support the companies, but it's really all on the founder's job to look for potential opportunities and so on. They maybe have some network, they maybe have some investor network that are a little bit more likely to get a pitch from the incubated companies, but it's not dramatically changing your difficulties as a founder.
Again, very good reflection, and then it makes you think, because there are some cases where founders put the responsibility on the accelerators. Oh, they didn't tell us this, but
no, absolutely
should be on the founder's side, right? Okay, cool.
Number,
Let's get into later in the journey, international expansion. In the period of 2023 and 2024, you expanded your operations to Toulouse in France. Is that right?
It is right. 2023.
What made you to choose Toulouse over, well, any other locations within Europe?
So first of all, the rationale was the space economy is really national-driven market, let's say. So it's true that you have some European programs, it's true that you have some European investments and so on, but the single entities, the single nations are really investing a lot in the space economy. And when we were narrowing it down, we really narrowed it down to 3 countries that were France, Luxembourg, and UK, because we were thinking that UK and France at that time. So UK and France, they had a strong space economy, a lot of companies there and so on. So those were there for that reason. And Luxembourg was there because they had a really strong financing environment for R&D activities in the space economy. You know? But then at the end, we discarded Luxembourg because the ecosystem for us needed to be more mature in terms of our potential customers. and they didn't have it. And France and UK, they are among the two. France had just announced the France 2030 program of 9 billion euros invested into space economy. And that was really one of the drive for which we thought, okay, yeah, France now has the cards in play to really sustain an ecosystem of companies in France. And those ecosystem of companies will be our customers. So the idea was, okay, let's open in France for this sort of reason. And yeah, so this was why we choose France.
If you wouldn't have a company made yet, which country would you choose to start your company from?
Nice question. So my answer could depend on the company. Suppose we are starting, I would be starting a software company. I would probably pick UK as a software company. UK and France, for sure, are the topic, but I would pick UK for the investment scenario and the multicultural environment and the access to capital that you might get in the UK with respect to other nations. Because at the end, it's true that if you have a really compelling business idea, you can get money from anywhere. But typically, it's also easier to raise money in your local state where you're based. So it's really just a matter of probability of getting the money that you need to run the business if you are based in those countries. I would pick those two.
And what is your take on Europe versus the US to starting a company in the space economy? I'm very curious why you didn't say the US from start.
No, well, sorry, I was thinking Europe in this answer that I just gave you. I was
Fair
thinking
enough.
among European countries. No, the US for sure is it's an outlier in this conversation in terms of the investment, in terms of the risk the investors are willing to take. This is really important. In Europe, where the investors are still a little bit risk adverse, especially in the early stages, they want to see too much stuff with respect to the status and the stage of a specific company. In the US, the seed money is really easier to find and at bigger amounts. There is a drawback for the US that the cost of labor is really high, especially in the states where you find also a lot of talent because of the software companies driving down the prices of the labor so much. At the end, it turns out that if you raise a 5 million euro in Europe, it's equivalent to a $6-8 million round in the US, because simply you pay the wages 4 times more, you have more costs and so on. For sure, as an European founder, starting out in the US is not an easy task, for sure. I don't even know how feasible this is, but maybe it's feasible, I don't know. In general, you can do a lot with European talent and European cost of work. Probably you can do the same, especially at the early stage with respect to the US. It's more on the matter of finding the capital with respect to actually building a strong team. European teams are very strong as well.
As a proud European, I really love your answer. I wanted to challenge you a bit on that one. Okay, awesome. And regarding US, your recent Series A that you raised just recently is supposed to help you to expand to the US, right? Why to expand even beyond European borders? And when did you make that decision within the journey of your company?
Well, it's kind of a straightforward decision because for us, in terms of capturing a bigger market, the US were really on the spotlight for this. And then the question becomes, how can we capture the US market in the most effective way? What is the go-to-market strategy for us to open in the US? And this will drive also what type of company we will open in the US, because the overall goal is to get commercial contract. As a European company, you need a lot of capital. So this is also something that goes into play into a sensible way of opening an office without really disrupting the operations of your company.
And regarding capital, you raised 3.5 million euros in this recent round. Just for potential investors listening to this episode, are your doors open for more investors at this moment?
No, we are open. The investment size was set to be at 5 million euro. And we raised and closed, so completed, money is already in the bank, completed the due diligence for the initial 3.5 million euros. And we have a ticket of 1.5, which is left available, which can be broken down into different slots as well. with the only caveat that we are only interested in getting value, smart money out of this 1.5 million euro ticket. So we are preferring getting potential investors in the domain of software sales, so software investors that have a proven record of supporting software companies, or investors that have a proven record of supporting companies establishing in the US. So those are the two main drivers for us as a company today.
Awesome. Well, an amazing story. Also, I wanted to ask one more question regarding the long-term vision. And where do you want to end up in the next 5 years from now on?
This is super clear for us. We think that the benefits of automating completely the value chain of the satellite mission can drive the value of the company very high in the next 5 years from now. So the vision is going to stay in the space economy. In the meanwhile, as a company, we noticed that some of our products have a potential scale up outside the space economy. So in these years, we will try to expand also in additional verticals. Well, at least try to understand if we have a market fit outside the space economy, because we saw that this is just beneficial. If we really build a scalable company in terms of sales processes and a scalable set of product, or at least one product that can scale in the other verticals, this is just beneficial for scaling up in terms of company, in terms of value, in terms of revenue, everything.
Okay, awesome. Well, so if there are any potential investors here, reach out to Lorenzo and have an amazing topic. Okay, now is the time for a quick fire round questions. So I will ask you 5 questions, and curious about your answer here. First one, what is the most underrated skill for a European space founder?
The most underrated skill of
Underrated, yeah.
I think networking, it's something that as European we try to do quite well. We are really open to talk to people, and it's underrated. A very strong features of European founders.
Okay, and next one. What was your worst investor meeting and also story behind it?
So I have so many investor meetings that went really badly. In general, the thing that stung to me a lot is when we were pitching the initial Series A, so it was 1.5 years ago, and I got into this investor meeting, and this investor thinks in 30 seconds that he has understood what we are doing as a company, which maybe every investor does that, I don't know. But the issue with this meeting was that he was trying to teach me something on the technical aspect of what we were doing out of this 30 seconds in which he was convinced that he understood completely. And in fact, he didn't understand anything at all about our company, our technology, stack, and so on. So I had to sit in this 30-minute meeting where this guy was trying to teach me how to do my job technically in our company job. And it was really awful because I was trying to be polite in not saying bad things during the meeting, because that's my approach, to always be polite. But it was really frustrating meeting, absolutely.
Okay, next one. What is the biggest misconception about AI in space?
Honestly, that AI is the solution to the customer problems. This is not true. The solution to the customer problems is a set of software technologies. Some of them are AI, some of them are not. But AI is not the solution. It's a technology that helps, but at the end, you need to have that fits the needs of the customer.
Awesome. 2 more. What is the one thing you wish you would known before starting AIKO?
Considering the product market fit as soon as possible when designing a product.
Okay, and the last one. What do you think is still missing in the European space ecosystem?
Well, I can speak for 2 hours, but in a short question, 2 things honestly are really missing. On the company side, especially for companies like us that are suppliers of bigger companies, what is missing is the mentality of these bigger companies that the supply chain is an enhancement of your operations, and it's actually a value for you to work with them and not to try to build everything in-house. Because SpaceX, for example, is doing everything in-house, but they are very good at building everything in-house. In Europe, we have the mentality of we build everything in house, but then at the end you're not good at doing it. You're not efficient. You don't have the teams of talents that you have built, and these companies now are acting as an obstacle to the success of the new companies, and they should be an accelerator for the success. This on the company side. On the investment side, the investors need to take more risk in the space economy for sure, because otherwise they keep saying, "Oh yeah, this is interesting," but we don't invest. Not just for us, all the other founders for sure. But at the end, if you believe in the space economy, you need to reduce a little bit the risk and trust a little bit these companies.
Okay, that was a very good short answer. I think we should do a roundtable on only this topic at some point. I would also love to share a lot of ideas here. Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot for being on this podcast. I hope that listeners have got a lot of insight from this conversation. One last question: where can people follow your journey?
The main channel we have is on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn and follow the company on LinkedIn. That's where we have most of the news. Our website as well, of course, but they are mirrored basically. So LinkedIn is good.
Awesome. Awesome. And actually, one more thing. There is one tradition that I would like to introduce a challenge of the week for early stage space founders. But what do you think should be the challenge for the listeners here for the next week until the next episode comes?
Get the structure a process. If you don't have it, structure a process in which you are confident to reach out to 100 investors in a week. And those 100 investors are narrowed down where you are sure that they are specifically investing in your field, in your application.
Okay, awesome. Well, amazing episode.